Hey mamas, welcome to the Mom Chat Show where we talk all things motherhood and we keep it real, raw, and honest. And me and my new besties, we're ready to share it all with you. Yes, you heard right. All of it, the mistakes, the trial and errors, the ups, the downs, the emotional roller coasters, and the happy times too. So if you're ready to laugh, cry, learn, and just have a good time, then this is your podcast show. You're my people. Let's chat. I want to welcome you to Mom Chat Show, and I'm excited to hear about your expertise and what you do and just how you can help us mamas. So go ahead and introduce yourself and let me know a little bit about you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again for having me. My name is Julie DeLucca-Collins, and I am a business and life strategy coach. I also have a podcast called Casa de Confidence and an author. My book is Confident You, Simple Habits to Live the Life You Have Imagined. And one of the things that I am really passionate about is habits. I am a tiny habit certified coach along with other certifications, but really one of the ways in which I help, whether it be my clients or friends or even myself, because I am my best client, is that I use the framework of tiny habits to really be able to go after my goals and to really be able to have the best mindset so that I don't feel overwhelmed. And I think that, I am not a mom, I'm an auntie and I'm a friend to lots of moms. But in this world, we tend to deal with ourselves beating ourselves up over the things that we don't accomplish. We beat ourselves up for the things that we are not doing, or we are burning ourselves out for all of the different hats that we're wearing. The framework of tiny habits, it's something that allows us to stop the imposter syndrome, feel a little more at peace, and we don't have to rely on feeling motivated to get things done. We can just accomplish them and feel good about what we're doing.
Exactly. That is my total motto. I always tell moms, as long as you're doing small steps moving forward, you're good.
That's
You're
all that
good.
counts. Yeah, absolutely. And we're not taught that, right? We always think that we have to put on the big show and have the perfect house and the meticulous whatever, right? And our kids have to be perfect and best wife ever. But the reality is that we are human. We never normalize that. Human beings, right? We are beings, and we are being at imperfection. We're not human perfects. So it's very important to give ourselves grace for the things that we do on a daily basis and celebrate, even if it's the little things that we're accomplishing that is a 1% better from before.
Yes. And I love what you said, that as long as it's 1% forward. So it's like, long as you're doing some type of movement, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
And as moms, we tend to overanalyze everything. If it has not been, it's usually then somehow it didn't happen.
Yeah.
It didn't happen, or we're not doing enough. So I love that you are focused on just doing little increments of something. So I would love to know what put you on the journey of doing it in that way, because like you said, we're not naturally that way.
No.
As I know, naturally, years ago, that was totally not my mindset. It is now, but it took a lot of practice and relearning. So what put you on this path?
So the first thing that I'm going to tell you is that for me, the first steps toward this is living in that messy middle and realizing that I was not alone, realizing that it is not permanent. Number 3, that failures don't define me as bad. Failures are what teaches me to become better. And what really put me on the path, and when it comes to habits, coaching, mentoring, all of that, it's all because I wanted to be better. And I knew that it had to be a better way to feeling inadequate, a better way to feeling like I was not enough, a better way to that compare and despair, that no matter who we are, we tend to feel. And I started to really go through and find and read and I began after my divorce, and I'm remarried, but my first marriage, after I went through my divorce, I knew that I wanted to just change and evolve and be a better person, and not a perfect person, but I knew that what I'd been doing wasn't working. So that's when I started to really take a moment to analyze, well, what can I change? What can I do better and different and improve again that 1%? So I started working with a coach, and it was really transformative because it really started to shift my mindset, which is something that for the first time I realized that what we think creates a feeling in us. And that feeling is what drives our actions that get us the results that we want. So for instance, if I am looking at Instagram and I see everybody with their perfect house, and I begin to think about, ooh, my house is not that pretty, or I'm missing this, or things are out of place, then I begin to generate that feeling that I'm not good enough and that my effort is not worth it. And when I think that, then I may become depressed or sad or tune out. And then maybe I don't do the laundry or clean the dishes, right? Because I'm in my head and I'm feeling in these negative emotions. And that's the result I'm going to get. My house is not as great as I would want it to. But when I started to see that, hey, if I shift a little bit of what my mind is thinking, and one, acknowledging that, hey, you know what, Julie, you're thinking that you're not good enough just because you're comparing yourself to somebody else's picture, right? Then if you acknowledge that, I began to say, wow, I'm thinking that. And then after normalizing that thought and realizing, you know what, but I can, maybe my kitchen doesn't look like that, but I can put the dishes away. And what is that 1% increment that I can do? And then celebrating my wins, because we don't celebrate those good things that we do. We only pay attention to the negative. And when I started to do that, I started to see shifts. I started to see more of that. And then I started to continue to just wanted to share it with others. I was very successful in my corporate career. I climbed that corporate ladder. And then all of a sudden, my corporate ladder kept going up. But when I felt my mindset and everything starting to catch up, I realized there's other women that are feeling this way. There's other individuals who are stuck in that messy middle, who are just not seeing the light of day. And I wanted them to know that they could feel confident about the things that they're doing. They can feel better about themselves, and they can continue to leverage some of the things that I'm leveraging to really be able to live the life they have imagined. And I knew that eventually I would go out on my own and start my coaching practice, but the pandemic kind of pushed me forward really quick. I was laid off, and then I thought, okay, this is a sign. I need to do it now. And let me tell you, it wasn't, like from one day to the next that I got here. I went through my divorce in '09. So there was a lot of time in between that I had to grow and learn, and I trained myself. But all of the training that I've done was mainly because I wanted to improve. And then I realized that improvement is not just about being better myself, but it's about sharing what I know and bringing along those besties, right? Grabbing you by the hand and say, hey, I've been there, hon. Let's go. Come on. You can do this. I know. I've been there. And that's how we get ahead faster, is by going together.
Yes, I so agree. I love how when we go on a journey, we never realize that it's never fully all the way about us. It
Mm-hmm.
starts off that way, and
Yeah.
we're like, okay, I'm ready to do this for me. And then
Mm-hmm.
as we go through the journey, then it's like, wait, but she needs help too, and they need help
Yeah.
too. And now you're like, okay, I want to help them too, because
Yeah.
I see a little bit of me in them.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
you know,
That's what
um,
makes us stronger. There is a Chinese proverb, I believe, that says that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think that that is really so true, because if you think about what teamwork can accomplish as opposed to what we accomplish when we're by ourselves. And the thing is, we need to normalize the feelings that we are experiencing. Many of us sit alone and we think, oh, nobody feels that way. Nobody thinks this way. Nobody, whatever, right? Fill in the blank. I'm a terrible mom. It's
Yeah.
not true. I hear a lot of my girlfriends talk about it. And then when it's like, this is what you're feeling, but are you really that terrible? No, you're not. You're just human. You're just a woman trying to do the best you can. And the more that we talk about this with each other, the more than one, we can lift each other up, and two, realize that it's normal to feel that way. Because we're never going to have it together at one time. All we can do is try and continue to practice at getting better at it.
Yes, that is so accurate. It's really like a mental shift, like you said.
Mhm.
When you start to refocus the way that you see things, it's like a game changer. It's a major game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, I mean, there's such unnecessary grief that we put ourselves through because we're not really practicing to improve that 1%. We are expecting to be at the finish line, right? Like we
Mhm.
all want to have, we all want to be in shape, but we don't realize that just one time at the gym, is not going to happen. And number two, that it takes time for muscles to develop. However, if you go to the gym consistently for 5 days, you may not see a new muscle, but you're definitely going to be stronger at the end of 5 days. All you have to do is continue to show up.
Yes. One thing that I try to remind moms is that it took you a long time to create that habit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So if
Yes.
it took you a long time to create that habit,
Mm,
it's gonna take time to relearn
yeah.
a new way and create a new habit, you know?
And the thing is, and here's something that's very important, right? Every
Yeah.
behavior that we have established is a behavior that has created a passageway in your brain. Your brain has sort of created these highways and has built these automations because your brain likes to automate things. They like to be efficient. And your brain doesn't like to for instance, when you're driving to the store, your brain doesn't like to oh, okay, I'm going to get in the car and really this is how I turn on the car. Look at me, I'm so old, right? I'm turning the key. This is how I turn on the car. This is how I drive. Your brain is not doing that. Your brain, and that's a
Mhm.
habit. Your brain learned to drive and then automated it. And yes, you still can be a little conscious and pay attention to traffic, but for the most part, that becomes an automation. Now, what happens is when you're trying to create a new habit, you're no longer trying to ride that old highway. You're starting to build a new road in your brain. So your brain is always going to automatically revert to what has been the preferred route. And what you have to do is by being aware, right? Aware and noticing what you're doing, then you're starting to create that passageway. And the more that you are aware and you create that new habit and not ride the old highway, then it begins to automate that new route in your brain. The thing that really makes something stick for a new habit is celebrating your wins, giving yourself credit. Your brain does things when they feel good. So, if, for instance, you wanted to have a habit of drinking more water, and every time you drink water, even if it's like, you know what, I'm going to drink this whole glass, and yesterday I only drank half a glass, and it doesn't seem like you're drinking a lot more, but you're doing it and you celebrate it, your brain is like, go me, I better drink that water because I want to feel good again, right? And then you're going to start to do that. And the next thing you know, you've automated the process that your glass is full, you drink it, your glass is empty, you fill it, and you drink it. And that's what ends up happening and what creates these habits for us. And we don't even know half of what everything that it does, but it's so important to notice that one, you change because you feel good. And number two, everything that you have, it's not that you're a bad person because you have a bad habit. You're a human and you've created some automations. Now it's time to create new automations that serve you better in this stage of your life.
Oh my goodness. Wow. That is so awesome. Oh, okay.
Thank you.
So, so that leads me to my next question. So, for someone that's a newbie to
Mhm.
wanting to shift their mind, wanting to shift the way that they go about life, what would be the starter steps?
This is so good. Okay. starter steps, and I think I mentioned this a little bit already, but I want to revisit it because sometimes, let's take January 1st. What a great day for all of us. We think, oh, this is the day I change. This is the day I'm going to be better. No, this is the day like any other day. Every day is an opportunity. So if you want to get started and you're not sure where to do it, start today. Don't wait for January 1st. Don't wait for Monday, right? Most people are like, oh, Monday, I'm going to start my whatever, fill in the blank. It doesn't work like that. Work today. And what is it that you can do? And the next thing is you want to notice, one, what your behavior is. Notice what your automated highway is, right? Because whatever habit you're trying to change, the most important thing that you can do is really acknowledge, like, you know what? I'll give you an example. For many years, I told myself that I was not a morning person, that I hated mornings, that I could never get up early. And that for me, I was a night owl. And the thought of having to get up early, just like, oh, it's so terrible. And then you know what I realized? That I had a terrible habit of staying up really late. And what I needed to notice is that, hey, I want to be more, chipper and happier and ready to go in the morning. Well, I started to notice, like, what is it that happens before I do that habit? And noticing that led me to realize, like, wait a minute, if I'm like scrolling on social media, oh, you know what? I'm watching the news, and then I'm like getting to bed, and I started to notice all of these behaviors, right? My highway, my automated highway. And all of a sudden I realized, like, I didn't have to change everything at once, but I started to make those incremental 1%. So the first thing that I did is I didn't go to bed at 8 o'clock the next morning, but I said, you know what? I'm not going to watch the news before going to bed. Well, you know what? I'm going to scroll, not half an hour, but maybe 15 minutes. And as I started to do one thing and celebrate it, then I moved on to the next thing. Then I would I have an alarm that goes off, believe it or not, at 9:30 p.m. I grew up in cities. I'm a city girl. I came from New York City to Connecticut. And the thought of the city girl going to bed early was like, oh, that's crazy. But at 9:30, I get a little alarm that says, hey, Julie, start to wind down. And then I start my routine. I make some tea, and then I go upstairs. I wash my face. And you know what? You're probably like, oh my God, that would never work. I have to like do this. And maybe at night is the only time I can do laundry and put it all away. You're right. All I'm asking is notice what your routine is. Notice what you do. And then, hey, maybe rather than folding the laundry at night, if you're getting up a little bit earlier, you can do that. And you don't have to do it all at once, but you can do stuff that kind of like creates more momentum because you're doing more consistent action.
Yes. Okay. I love that. I love that because it's realistic for one.
Oh, for
Like you're
sure.
being real about like what's going on, what's happening, and you're
Mm-hmm.
not trying to force this huge drastic change that you
Right.
may not even keep up. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
something that like a lot of the time stops
Yep.
us, right?
Yeah, and we sometimes think, like we say, oh, I wish I was more motivated. Motivation is going to fail you. And this is brain science. Motivation is going to fail you if a task is hard. You may have motivation when you're first starting out, right? But when that, momentum goes away, you're losing your motivation, and a task that it's hard, you're going to be like, oh, forget it. I don't want to do that anymore. Right.
Mhm.
So it's very important to not rely on motivation. And this is why it's so important to rely on the tiny habits. And this is what I teach my clients. So for instance, we figure out what are the anchor moments, right? So for me, one of the anchor moments was when my phone tells me it's time to go to bed, my tiny habit is I turn on my tea kettle. I may or may not make my tea, but I turn on the tea kettle. And then after that, I go upstairs. And when I go into the bathroom, I wash my hands and then I wash my face because it's happening right there, right? And I just and again, it's a tight like what are the moments of the things that I already do and where can I attach the new habit to that, right? And then that's how you're building the momentum and moving ahead.
Oh my goodness, I love that. I love that so
Yeah.
much because it's so doable. It's
Right, for
very
sure.
doable.
And if you think about it, like if I think today is like, you know what, I'm gonna give myself a facial and I'm gonna like do all this stuff. It requires a lot of motivation. At the end of the day, if you're exhausted, like, oh my, I'm not even gonna do that, right? But what is your minimum baseline? Like, you know what? I'm just gonna take a washcloth and wash it off, right? And like my moisturizer is next to my bed. Like, so if I'm sitting in the bed taking my shoes off, oh, this thing is right here. Here, let me grab it. I put it on. And those are the things that make it that consistency that really fill your momentum, and the more that you do it, the more you're going to want to do it. And that's how you're building your confidence. That's how you're sort of like, oh, look at me go. I did that, right? So that's the momentum that will help you move forward. It's not necessarily that motivation that we're all so after. We have to have a big reason to be motivated. But again, it's the little things that don't take much motivation, then we can get more traction if we consistently do them.
Yes, I always tell moms it's all about moving forward, but doing what
Mhm.
you can do. And when
Right.
you focus on what you can do versus what you can't, so much more gets done.
Absolutely. You know what?
Yeah.
It's so funny because today it's a holiday here in the States, and so my husband he did laundry, and I'm like, oh, go you, and he's like, and I was about to fold it, and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to fold a couple things, and then I thought, I can do one more. Okay. And I folded one more thing. And I was like, oh, you know what? There's only a couple left. I'm going to do one more. And then I was like, all right, I'm done. And I said, okay, you bring it up. Right. And leverage the people around you. You know, it would have been so easy for me to bring it up and then be like, oh, I folded your laundry. I did this. But pay attention to the little moments and where you can do just the next best thing. Right. And that's what's going to help you move ahead. And it's not about the perfection, because when we go for perfection, we're going to fail. But if we go for the next best thing, what is the next best thing I can do? You're surely going to know that you're moving ahead and feel good about moving ahead.
Yes. Oh, I literally had to relearn that, and that is so accurate because perfectionism is real. It's so real, and it likes to attack.
Yeah,
Oh my
it
gosh.
sure is. Perfectionism. And I think that when we are going for perfectionism, right? And it's funny, I actually just did a TikTok about this. When we're going and we're really trying to be perfect, and we know we don't hit the mark of perfection, right? Maybe the world sees like, oh my God, look at her go. She's awesome. But we know better, right? We know we're not perfect because we know like goes behind the scenes. Then we feel crappy because, and that's when that imposter syndrome starts to come up and says, who are you to say you're so good? If they only knew that you don't have your stuff together, right? And that's what really affects us. So I want to encourage people to not allow perfectionism to undermine the good things that you're doing. We all have this judge in our heads that tell us you don't measure up, that tell us that you're not doing enough, that tell us somebody else is better, that tell us that this is how it should be done. No, I want you to just, again, normalize and tell your little judge, I hear you, but you know what? Today, this is what I did, and this is great. This is more than I've done before. And if we learn to talk to ourselves in a way in which we would our children, right? In a way that, good job, I'm so proud of you for your effort. wow, this is amazing, then and give ourselves credit, that perfectionism starts to dwindle. That judge voice that it's always telling us all the bad things we hate and that makes us feel terrible, then all of a sudden we're going to have this beautiful, sage, wise woman speaking life into us, because who better than to build you up than you? You're building up your children. You're building up your spouses, your family. You have kind words for so many people. It's time that you start to do that for yourself. It's time that you start to really focus on speaking those beautiful words into yourself and encouraging yourself. Because what will happen is your children see that. Your children hear that. And then our little girls all of a sudden won't be the little girls tomorrow that beat themselves up, that feel like they're not enough, feel that they need this, feel that they have to. They will be the little girls that are thriving because we show them what it looks like to be human, to be okay, to be in the moment, and to really be able to give ourselves credit for everything that we're doing already.
Yes. Ah, yes, because kids are definitely watching all
They
the time.
are.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You may never know it all the time. Sometimes they show it, sometimes they don't, but they definitely are watching for sure.
Yeah.
And what would you like to leave them with as something to get them grounded and also just kind of get their mind right when it comes down to starting this new journey of creating small habits and doing different for themselves and wanting more?
Well, I want you to remember that there is no fast highway to change. We are all in the process of building those new habits, those new roads. And as you're doing that, there's going to be moments that you're going to feel uncomfortable. There's going to be moments in which you are going to, again, feel that emotion that may not be a great emotion. And in times when I may feel negative emotions rising up or that criticism, that judge, I again notice what I'm feeling and I notice what I'm thinking that's driving that feeling, right? And there's something very quick that it doesn't require our phone, it doesn't require us to stop or any complication. There is your breath. Stay in the moment, connect to your breath. 3 breaths actually has been proven to reset your nervous system. So if your kids are running around and maybe you don't want to yell and you want to, be a little more patient, right? And sometimes it's hard to have the motivation to be more patient because, oh my goodness, right? So remind yourself like, okay, and really feel like, what does it feel for the breath to come in through your nose? Expand your belly, feel that moment. Or maybe you're sitting down and ask yourself, close your eyes and think, ooh, what does the chair feel like on my bottom? Are my feet on the ground? And take that moment to be aware. Awareness is one of the things that can help us reshift and go from that, vibrating really high, like your mind going all over the place and being overwhelmed, to bringing you back down and calming you. So I want to leave you with that. I want to leave you with noticing and being in the moment. Another thing that, when I forget to breathe, because maybe I'm like really mad or really like annoyed, or even like if somebody cuts me off in traffic and I'm like, oh, I use this. I rub my fingers and I begin to feel the texture in my fingers and really like, ooh, okay, what am I feeling? Oh, my hands are dry. Okay, what else am I feeling? I feel my nail and all of that, all of a sudden, your nervous system and your focus goes from a heightened experience from that reptilian brain that is trying to protect you to being focused on something else and calming yourself down. So those are some simple things that you can do in the process of trying to change, in the process of trying to create new habits. There's going to be those moments that you want to revert. So these things will bring you back to the moment and allow you to remind you what is your next best step, right? So I leave you with that.
I think at times we forget how much control we actually have within us to change so many things. So I love that reminder. Yes.
And this process is not a destination. Many people think when I become, when I get there, give yourself credit for the journey, because the better lessons are in the journey. The better lessons are in the everyday, not in achieving or reaching or doing or being, is in right here, right now.
Oh, yes. That was like a breath of fresh air hearing that. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's so true though.
Notice the change, because those are the things that really will encourage you to keep moving forward. And don't be afraid of failure. A failure, again, like I learned, is the best teacher. It is the best teacher that will help you, and no matter where you want to go. And for many, our society tells us failure is terrible, but it really is something that if you start to think of like, what am I trying to learn from this lesson? You will see that there is so much more that we can grasp from that.
Okay. On that note, how can they find you if they want to get more help, if they want to relearn their patterns and move forward?
So if you want to connect with me, go to my website and send me a message, or any of the other social platforms here on Facebook or Instagram. Julie, and DeLucca is 2 C's, or go to Go Confidently Coaching. But we need community to know that we're not alone and we're not the only ones feeling, all of these different things.
Yes. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on here with me and honestly sharing all of these beautiful nuggets with my audience and my moms. I know this is going to be like life-changing for them.
You're making such a big impact. Thank you for doing the work that you do, because, I think back to my mom and I think back on my friends who are moms. It's not easy. And I see that they have, this thing that they're trying to do, and you are facilitating their journey for them. And this is such a blessing that you're doing this. So thank you for having me. And I feel so honored that you asked me to be a part of your show today. Thank you.
Well, thank you. That's it, mamas. Thank you so much for spending a little time with me on the Mom Chat Show. And I would love to connect with you more. So to make sure of that, click that follow button and also follow us on Mom Chat Show on Instagram, where I will talk to y'all again next week. Bye, mamas.